The Ukrainian delegation is already on its way to the United States to discuss the peace plan, according to Ukraine's Deputy Foreign Minister Andriy Sybyga. According to him, the main task of the Ukrainian representatives is to protect national interests and to accelerate the end of the war as much as possible. The minister thanked the United States and President Trump for their contribution to the peace process and noted that now is the time when these efforts to end the war can yield results. Andriy Sybyga also announced a series of diplomatic initiatives by the country's leadership in the near future.
Next week will also be extremely dynamic and intense for President Zelensky in terms of diplomatic dialogue. These will be meetings with our closest allies. For certain reasons, I cannot announce the locations to you, but these contacts will definitely take place and will happen. To achieve concrete results for our country, to protect our interests, to strengthen our defense capabilities, and above all, to safeguard our energy system.
Today, Volodymyr Zelensky reviewed a report from NSDC Secretary Umerov regarding upcoming negotiations in the United States. According to the president, our delegation has a clear task: to promptly and substantively prepare the definition of steps to end the war. Ukraine continues to work as constructively as possible with America, and we expect that the results of the meetings in Geneva will now be further developed in the United States, wrote Volodymyr Zelensky. Let me remind you that the day before, Volodymyr Zelensky approved the composition of the delegation that went to the United States. The corresponding decree was published on the website of the President's office. In addition to the head of the delegation, Rustem Umerov, 8 more people were included in its composition. In particular, Kirilo Budanov, the head of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Andriy Hnatov, chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Sergei Kislitsia, first Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Oleksandr Poklad, Deputy Head of the Security Service of Ukraine. The main targets of the attack are energy infrastructure and civilian facilities. Volodymyr Zelensky emphasized this while commenting on the Russian strike. The president responded to the large-scale Russian shelling and stated that pressure on Russia must be increased. It is time for Europe to make a decision regarding frozen assets if Moscow refuses to stop its drone and missile strikes. 2 people were killed in Kyiv, and 40 others were injured as a result of the Russian combined massive attack, according to the State Emergency Service. As a result of the shelling in the capital, there is damage in 7 districts. In the Shevchenkivsky and Solomyansky districts, fires broke out in apartment buildings. In the Sviatoshinsky district, a shell hit a 3-story building, resulting in a fatality. In the Dniprovsky district, a 10-story building was partially destroyed. In the Donetsky district, a missile fell near a 9-story building. A person who was near the impact site was killed. 6 more people were injured. He ran out of the building and then the strike happened. They were already getting out from under the rubble. There is some minor damage, but we are all alive and well. The man has sustained shrapnel wounds and sadly the son is gone.
The explosion was unexpected because usually we would hear something approaching, but this time there was no sound. Then there was a smell, an explosion, we saw debris, cars were thrown around, and we saw things burning, windows shattered. We went down immediately that night. There was a car, now there isn't. The main thing is that everyone is alive and well.
The aftermath of the massive Russian shelling of the Kyiv region is still being dealt with. A total of 33 locations with damage have been recorded in the Obukiv, Fastiv, Bucha, and Brovary districts. 1 person was killed and 8 were injured, according to the State Emergency Service. 78 settlements have been left without power. Due to the attack on energy facilities, emergency crews are currently working on restoration. Russian forces launched 596 drones and 36 missiles of various types at Ukraine. The capital of Ukraine and the Kyiv region were hit the hardest. The Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that Ukrainian troops neutralized 558 enemy drones and 1 out of 5 Kinzhal aeroballistic missiles. 12 out of 23 Kh-101 cruise missiles, all 4 Iskander-M ballistic missiles, and 2 out of 4 Kh-59 guided air-launched missiles. There were direct hits at 22 locations and debris fell at 17 more. The The Security Service of Ukraine, together with the Ukrainian Navy, struck 2 sanctioned Russian tankers in the Black Sea using Sybyga maritime drones. This was reported by our sources in the Security Service of Ukraine. These vessels are part of Russia's Shadow Fleet. Both suffered critical damage and have been effectively put out of operation, dealing a blow to Russian oil logistics. At the time of the attack, the tankers were empty and heading to Novorossiysk for loading. There have been 157 combat clashes on the front since the beginning of the day, according to the General Staff. The majority were in the Pokrovsk direction. There, the defense forces repelled 56 attacks by Russian invaders. Fighting took place near Myrnohrad and Lysivka. In the Oleksandrivka direction, enemy assaults continued near Sosnivka and Vishneve. Our defenders stopped 24 attacks and another 10 are still ongoing. In the Kostiantynivka and Lyman directions, there were 16 and 17 battles recorded, respectively. It was also tense in the south. The defense forces repelled 10 attacks in the Hulyapol direction, and in the Orikhiv direction, they stopped 7 offensive actions. U.S. President Donald Trump announced a complete closure of the airspace over Venezuela. This decision became part of the escalating confrontation with the president's regime. Nicolas Maduro, whom the U.S. does not recognize as legitimate and has declared wanted. Against the backdrop of the conflict, the U.S. deployed a significant military presence in the Caribbean, which sparked speculation about possible military action. The Trump administration even developed scenarios for direct strikes on military facilities protecting Maduro, as well as measures to take control of Venezuela's oil fields. The situation is increasing tensions in the region and drawing the attention of the international community. Vilnius Airport was closed on the night of November 29th due to drones in the airspace. This was reported by the LRT publication. Because of this, 3 flights were cancelled, 9 were redirected to the airports in Kaunas and Riga, and 10 flights experienced changes in departure and arrival times. More than 3,000 passengers were affected. The airspace restrictions remained in effect until 7 in the morning. In recent days, Lithuania has recorded exceptional activity in the smuggling of balloons. Launched from Belarus. In Hong Kong, the number of victims of the large-scale fire in a residential complex has risen to 128 people. More than 250 others are considered missing, according to Reuters. The fire engulfed 8 32-story buildings, and according to local authorities, the fire alarm did not go off during the blaze. Search and rescue operations have been ongoing for the 3rd day now. Rescuers are finishing inspecting the buildings and clearing the debris. The management of the construction company is being accused of official negligence. 3 people have been arrested on suspicion of involuntary manslaughter. Local authorities promise to strengthen safety controls in residential complexes. 66% of students in the capital schools speak Russian during lessons. And during breaks, this figure rises to 82. The study was conducted by the State Service for Education Quality with the participation of the Language Ombudsman. Why, despite the full-scale invasion, does Russian still dominate in Kyiv classrooms? Anna Uzhvanko will tell us more.
Adele is an 11th grade student born in Kryvyi Rih. Then, the girl lived in Odessa for 8 years, and during the full-scale invasion, she moved to Kyiv.
I'm from Odessa, so of course, Odessa, everyone knows that before the war, it was mostly Russian-speaking, and there were a lot of children and families who spoke Russian. But now, the situation is such that we speak mostly Ukrainian. Sometimes it can be difficult because sometimes I think in Russian, also in Ukrainian, and sometimes it turns into a kind of surzik.
A negative trend in compliance with language legislation in the educational environment has been recorded in Kyiv. This became known as a result of the research. The survey was conducted separately among 3 groups of respondents, students in grades 8 through 11, their parents and teachers.
The situation with compliance with the language law and language regime in schools is not very good. In particular, the comprehensive research clearly indicated that only a mere 34% of the surveyed students reported that they exclusively speak the Ukrainian language during their lessons. Thus, a significant 66% of these students also speak the Russian language, which regrettably constitutes a direct violation of the current educational law and established regulations. A significant 88% of Kyiv students predominantly utilize Russian during their daily conversations.
Special attention was paid to teachers' compliance with language legislation.
A notable 24% of students in Kyiv have clearly indicated that their dedicated teachers frequently speak to them in both the Russian language as well as the Ukrainian language during various lessons and instructional periods, and 40% indicated that during breaks, teachers also speak to them in Russian as well as Ukrainian.
According to teachers, students often speak Russian because many families continue to use Russian at home.
The children react normally. I haven't encountered any cases of aggression or disagreement. They say sorry, but we are doing a lot, to ensure the Ukrainian language is present. Not just so that it is the language of instruction, but so that it becomes the language that shapes consciousness.
Meanwhile, parents' opinions differ.
They should absolutely know Ukrainian, as it is indeed our native, our official state language, but they grew up in much the same way as we did. We also inherently know Russian, and sometimes, quite naturally, speak it too. From childhood, they should have been taught Ukrainian, not Russian.
It's very important, as you know, this is how consciousness is formed, how the subconscious is shaped, and in general, the child's future is determined.
We try to explain that this language is not spoken in a country at war, and the aggressor speaks Russian.
Andriy Shimanovsky, a promoter of the Ukrainian language, believes that one of the reasons children use Russian is the content they consume.
I have repeatedly emphasized that we have a big problem with the Ukrainization of games. Because children spend a lot of time in games, on Discord, communicating with each other. And unfortunately, at the moment, it's not possible to play most popular games in Ukrainian. Their English isn't good enough, so they choose Russian instead. Likewise, I believe that we still haven't created enough children's content that is high quality and engaging.
Andriy Shimanovsky emphasizes that the reason for this is not a lack of talent, but financial difficulties. Not
because we don't have talented bloggers, talented hosts, or anything like that, but because it's very expensive. And perhaps for objective reasons, the state currently cannot fund all of this to such an extent. But at the same time, where are we supposed to get the money for it?
Despite the statistics in the capital, according to the results of the survey across Ukraine as a whole, the use of the Ukrainian language in schools has stabilized and continues to show positive dynamics.
I believe the time will come when we won't need to focus on this issue, and we'll simply know our language and use it everywhere, just like people do abroad. Because, first and foremost, this should be a matter of principle for every individual.
This is, above all, a matter of security for our country. This is a matter of our development trajectory and our independence, of strengthening the sovereignty of our positions. This is the development of the cultural sphere. This is the fundamental cornerstone that truly defines our collective identity as a sovereign nation and as an independent country. That is why it is extremely important.
Anna Uzvenko, Ihor Kovalchuk, and Valery Sichuk, The Nationwide Marathon, United News.